Alright everyone, this is the beginning of part 2 in which we're gonna focus on creating some of the technical pieces. As you can see here, we're trying to expand using the edge extrusion method. Of course, you can keep holding shift to extrude that loop of edges, and of course this area inside is not gonna matter because you're gonna delete it later anyways. And then you can see, as you can see here, it is completely tilted, which is not something that we want to keep, so we're going to delete it like this anyways. And now we are going to see some progress on the front side, which is the most complicated piece so far. And we're gonna work on some of the also the complicated pieces. They are not complicated individually, but when they are being put in one mess, it's gonna look pretty complicated, when in fact it is not that difficult to create. I found that the most difficult thing to do is to understand how these all these pieces are kind of being put in one place and how they function. That's why I supplied you with a lot of reference images that you can link in the description. At least you can check them out in the first video. So now we are using the edge extrusion method in order to create the this tube actually starts from the front, and it goes all the way to the back because this is a rifle, and of course the bullets are gonna travel all the way to the end where it's gonna be fired. Okay, take a look from the perspective viewport. Alright, now we are trying to modify the stock a little bit because it is actually where all these pieces are going to take place. So we better find a balance that is going to allow us to put all these pieces, different pieces, on the stock. Of course, there is a cavity inside the wood, or this piece of wood that we call a stock, and it is in rifles it is pretty long, so, and it's pretty big, so it's very important to make sure, as I said before, it is very important to make sure that this piece is going to work with the rest of the other pieces. And of course we need to make sure that the center or the middle of the stock is gonna be pretty flat, and because we need that area to achieve a perfect symmetry. Alright, so here we are going to actually curve some or create a cavity inside the wood, which is very important in order to get what we want. Okay, deleting is probably a good idea because we need to kind of create extra edges and polygons in order to do this. Okay, now as you can see here, we are doing the edge extrusion using the edge extrusion method in order to create this. And it's not that difficult, it is just something that you need to understand how to create. Okay, the most important thing here is to keep things smooth and to avoid any sort of misplacement of any vertices or edges. And now we need to weld these vertices and attach any left vertices. And of course, this type of modeling is completely up to you. You can do it any way you want. You don't have to follow me. You don't have to follow the exact thing I'm doing here. Alright, we need to deselect the edges where we don't want to the edges we don't want to flatten, and the areas we want to keep where they are. So we're gonna do this manually, as you can see here. Okay, we need to put the stock exactly in the center. Now we are trying to move on to another piece. It's not actually another piece, it is just an extension of this piece, which I think we're gonna separate to make things a little bit simpler. Or maybe we're gonna keep it attached if this is gonna be a possibility. Here we are trying to create kind of the rails where um, the bolt is gonna move inside and out to extract the empty bullets and stuff. And of course here as well we are trying to modify the look. Okay, on this side we're going to extrude and do almost the same thing, but on a higher end. Okay, we're trying to smooth things out here a little bit. Alright, so the important thing is to keep these pieces in the right place and consider the amount of space or um, the proportion of each piece. As you can see here, this piece is a little bit curved, and it's gonna go above and beyond some of the curved areas we created in the wood. Carved, I should say. And of course, this is one of the interesting things to create in this weapon, because if you haven't created something difficult or something complicated like this before, it is going to make your modeling skills even better. Of course, this area here is going to be also interesting, because this piece is also very important, and it has some little good, actually a number of good details in it, and it's gonna influence how the rifle is gonna look in the end, especially that um, uh, the um, the viewer, or as a first person shooter, you are going to you're gonna stare at this piece a lot. And of course, this piece is actually called the bolt sleeve, and it's a little bit, as we said before, it's a little bit interesting to create, and it is going to help us learn more about the modeling process. Actually, this is not the bolt sleeve. This is the piece behind it is the bolt sleeve, and it is even complicated than the first one. So these two pieces are actually going to add a lot of detail to the weapon we are trying to create here. And the difficult thing, as you can see here, and as you can see me modeling this piece, is that all both ends, the front and the back of this piece, are kind of have their own shape, and the details are kind of spread everywhere, and you need to look at reference images a lot in order to get this right. And believe it or not, most of the time during the process of modeling this weapon, I spent actually looking at reference images, not doing the modeling itself, which is ironic to most people, because it can be too pricey to create something and go back and remodel it all over again, especially if it comes at the expense of the other pieces, and it's gonna be a difficult thing to do, you know, if you just throw yourself without a lot of accuracy and without a lot of understanding of what's going on, and yeah, it's not good at the end. Alright, as you can see here, this is a piece that is a little bit complicated, but it's not that difficult to create after all. So um, after adding the testing out the shell modifier, we can see that there are some tweaks and some other things that that are missing. For example, these vertices here that need to be welded. And of course, we need to add some details here because, as you can see on the reference image, this area here is not completely flat. So we need to push these vertices a little bit apart in order to create that beautiful curve right there. And of course, when we add the shell modifier, it's gonna look even better. Alright, so as you can see here, we're gonna convert this paste the other poly and override the shell modifier. So now there is no go back. Basically, we can say that there is no go back when it comes to the thickness that we created, which is the result of using the shell modifier. And of course, this area here is going to be a little bit on a different level than the rest of the piece. We can connect or target weld these vertices together. So this one is going to be a little bit extruded out. Alright, so now we're gonna work on some of the intricate details of the stock. And actually, let's be honest here, the right half and the left half are not equally similar. So there are some changes we need to make. And if you take a closer look at the reference images that I associated with the videos, you are gonna notice that there are so many things that we cannot notice right away until we start modeling them, and this is one of the details that we need to always keep an eye on. Alright, now we're gonna create this piece on the side, which I don't know what is exactly its function, but it's necessary for some reason. This piece here is not complicated at all, it's very simple. And creating it is gonna be even simpler. Okay, after looking at some reference images, I realized that this area here is not completely as smooth as it is right now. So we're gonna extrude some of the edges right there, and of course we need to make some adjustments. We can of course target well some of these vertices in order to reduce the sharpness. The difficult thing here is getting something that really looks like the real weapon. So if you are not really going to invest some time investigating how the real weapon looks like, the result that you're gonna get is probably not going to be as satisfying when we look at it from a professional point of view. Okay, just to save some time, you're gonna copy this element. Of course, you're gonna need to keep holding shift and copy to the other side. And I stopped the video because this was going to take a little bit of time, so I just copied it and deleted some polygons, and of course I just welded some of the vertices that need to be welded. And to be honest, if this bothers you a little bit, you just need, I just want to remind you that sometimes you just need to do things by yourself. And if you don't have the ability to solve problems like these, you're probably not qualified to create a complex thing like this, and you should probably go to the basics and create something elementary and something simpler than this, let's just say. This is not me criticizing you or telling you something that you don't want to hear, but it is just a simple truth. If you're not qualified to do some of the basic things, then creating something complex like this actually can be something that you're not ready for. As I was saying before, this box right here is simple. It's not gonna be a big problem, and it has a bolt on top of it just to keep it in place. Okay, this model looks a little bit um, good right now, and there is a lot of work that we can do here. So as what I'm doing right here is I am trying to create smoothing groups. Of course, creating smoothing groups is gonna help us a lot when it comes to creating a low poly model that looks like the high poly model, and of course it's gonna help us in the unwrapping most importantly. Sometimes we need to select some of these polygons individually in order to tell 3ds Max where are the exact set of polygons that we need to uh, create a smoothing group for. And the concept of a smoothing group is gonna be new if you're it's gonna be a little bit weird if you're new to it, because you don't actually see the purpose of it until you actually need it and you actually understand what's going on here. Of course, these hard edges need to be smoothed out a little bit, and using the chamfer modifier, the chamfer tool right there is going to be a good option, but you need to watch out for some of the vertices that are going to result from the usage of the chamfer tool. I'm gonna fix that later, of course, and we're gonna connect some of the vertices that are gonna prevent us from having something nice and beautiful. Sometimes you can just use auto smooth, but for the most part, when we are facing something complex like this piece here, we need to work on these smoothing groups individually, and this may take a little bit of time, but it is worth it after all. Of course, right now we're trying to find the right set of smoothing groups that we're going to use here. Right now we are trying to use the quad chamfer, which is a tool that you can download online, and you can install it or just put it with the rest of the modifiers. But it's very handy actually in order to get things right. And if you're using new version like 3ds Max 15 or 16, it's gonna be integrated with the software. As you can see here, what I'm trying to do right now is to connect some of the vertices in order to get the chamfer process in the right way. There are a lot of messed up places that we need to take care of. Alright, now we are taking a look at what the weapon actually looks like after we added these pieces here. Okay, right now we're gonna try to work on the front side, which is a little bit of a complicated piece, and it is intricate in some ways. So the first thing we're gonna do is probably we're gonna use a cylinder from a previously used area right here. So we're gonna select these polygons, and of course we're gonna detach these and try to use it as a starting point. So detach it as a clown, for instance. Of course, you need to add some thickness to it, and after that, we're going to select the polygons that are gonna help us create a flat surface on top of it. Of course, now we're gonna start adding some of the details necessary to get the look we are looking for. So now we're gonna split this piece into two halves and delete the half that we don't really need. Of course, right now we're gonna try to figure out a way in order to get this area to work in a way that is um, close to what we can see on in the Eurofis image. And there are gonna be some few things that we gonna change here, and we better be a little bit careful here because we need to first create that white surface on the side, and of course after that we're gonna try to follow the curve of the barrel. Alright, as you can see here, there are some edges we can add, and of course we're gonna start connecting and bridging between these areas right here. So now we need more segments in order to perform the bridging process. There is a little bit of work that we need to do here, and sometimes we need to remove a lot of things in order to get what we want. Alright, so we need to take a lot, we need to observe what we are working on from different angles, and of course we need to compare what we see on the viewport to the reference image that we have. I have it actually on my second screen, which is specifically used for this purpose. It's a little bit difficult to follow that curve that you can see on this side. So we're gonna try to get as close as possible to the shape that we are aiming for. And the turbo smooth, of course, when we apply it later, is gonna help us improve this area a lot. But we need to, of course, set the basic layout for the process. So now with the symmetry modifier, we can see that we are doing a good job so far. Alright, so this area is starting to look a lot better than it was before. So now we are trying to pierce this empty hole right there using a cylinder, and we're gonna use a probably for this purpose. So we're gonna reduce the number of sides in order to make the process of sorry for that. That was my alarm. And yeah, I was saying that in order to get things to work easier, you need to reduce the number of sides. For example, in the cylinder that you are going to use to perform the pro-bullying or the bullying process. So because later on you're gonna need to do a lot of work in order to recreate the damage or repair the damage that was done because of the bullying process. So what we need to do now is to just target weld and connect some of the vertices that are not really doing us a favor. I think this tool needs to be developed more, because we can already see that it has some major difficulties that we are facing, because it's not working as good as we want it to. Okay, I stop the video right there, because it's sometimes it takes too long to do these types of things, and doing repetitive things is actually wasting my time and your time. You probably can do it very easily. So we are making a good process progress right there, and we're gonna create even more details in the in this front side. Right, this side piece was easy to create, and fun, of course. So now we're gonna work on the real deal. Right, this piece here is going to be the starting point for the top side of the front side, or the real, what we call the front side itself. Okay, this piece here is a little bit tilted, so even though it's going to be difficult to work with in the future, we can just, probably we could have just left it where it was flat or horizontal, but this is gonna work as well. This piece right here is more detailed than probably the rest of the pieces, because it has multiple pieces to it, and of course it has some numbers that are imprinted on it, and it is beautiful. I really like this type of front sight. It is delicious for the artistic sense. So we're gonna try to cut our way in order to create that empty space in the center or in the middle of the front side. So now we're gonna use another cylinder in order to perform the Boolean process. Right now we are trying to find a good place for the cylinder, which took a little bit longer than I expected, because where we're gonna put it is gonna be very important. of course, when we apply the Boolean process, um, you're gonna see that there are some work that we need to do, which is totally fine. Alright, now we are trying to connect these vertices, or just take all of them to the very end. So there are a few things we need to do, which are just connecting the dots, connecting the vertices in the places that where there is going to be a possibility that we're not going to see something disrupted when we apply the smoothing modifiers. Of course, in this area there is a little bit of work to do. So we're gonna extrude this area right there, and we're gonna try to keep that a little bit of half a circle right there, or half a cylinder in the very center, and it's gonna be very small. So this piece here is gonna be it's gonna work hand in hand with the main piece of the front side. So actually, this piece is used to measure. We're gonna create some numbers on top of the piece that we already created, and this is actually a slider. There is gonna slide up and down at the front side. So this piece right now is actually looking as we want it almost. So this slider is going to need another exterior piece on this side. So detaching this piece was really necessary in order to make it look separate when we apply the tuber smooth modifier. So that was the reason why I wasn't able to weld these vertices, because some of the ends were actually closed. Alright, this piece actually is starting to look fantastic right now. And we're gonna try to auto smooth the main piece in the front side, which is this one. And there are some weird looking areas that we need to take care of. So it is looking great already after applying the smoothing groups. Alright, now we're gonna quickly, after modeling this piece, we're gonna create the floating geometry that is gonna be on top of the front sight. So we're gonna start off with some basics. Alright, we're gonna start off with a plane that is gonna be on top. Alright, so these types of this type of geometry is gonna be kind of imprinted um, on the height map, or in the normal map that is gonna be applied on the low poly. Alright, so as you can see, when we take a look at it from the without the edges, without faced edges mode, we're gonna see that it is almost it looks like it is part of the piece that we created previously, and that is the trick. Okay, now we're gonna create a line that is gonna allow us to spread these pieces in a way that is gonna be appealing and correct and organized using the spacing tool, which is gonna allow us to change the space or distance between pieces in order to organize them across this line. So now we need to support the edges of this piece in order for it to hold its shape. So we're gonna take this to the other side. We're gonna duplicate it and deselect all the pieces that are not part of what we want to create. And there is this night's effect, which is very important. That is not day. So now we're gonna create the numbers using text. Alright, so as you can see here, this is going to be a good way in order to create these floating geometries. So we're going to do the same thing to create the rest of the numbers. So this is going to be a manual process. So now we're gonna try to copy and paste this text and only change the numbers. And now we're gonna jump to create dual numbers 10, 11, and so on and so forth until we reach 20. And we can use, of course, the spacing or the distance between the two numbers. It was a little bit too high, so I needed to reduce it a little bit. We need to look at this this process from a top viewport, or just from perspective, but we're gonna look at it from a top view because we don't want to misplace these numbers. And the numbers 19 and 20 are a little bit smaller than the rest. Alright, so now we're gonna try to paste the extrude modifier into each number, because we need to convert it from being a spline or text to becoming a 3D object. And the next thing we're gonna do, I guess, is to attach these together in order to make the process of modifying each piece less painful. So now we need to push these numbers a little bit up, because we want them to be on top of the surface, not inside the surface. Alright, so right now this looks pretty good, and I hope you are following me so far in creating this weapon.